All right. Hi, my name is Johan Eriksson. I'm the saxophone professor at the University of Montana. This is all-state preparation for Montana. This is Voxman, page 38, Scherzo by Ferling. We're going to go over this measure by measure, and I'm going to point out some of the tricky features of this and how you can solve those. Notice that measure 1 and measure 2 is not the same. At first glance, you go, oh, I play measure 1 and then measure 2 is the same thing. But it's actually not. Notice that measure 1 has a staccato note on the very first 16th note. And the last 16th note in the first figure, so big beat 1, has no dot on it, while in the second measure, the last 16th note in big beat 1 has a dot on it. So you're going to have to play this differently. The first measure, second measure, notice that I clipped the note right before the C, the middle C. I do this so that you can actually hear the separation, and I make that staccato C a pickup into the grace note in that second measure. It's a little bit tricky to do at this speed. We then get to measure 3. This is probably the hardest as far as technique goes, and there's something else I want to point out. Notice that all the top notes form a melody. I just played all the top notes of measures 3, 4, and the first note of measure 5. If possible, try to bring that melody out. It is difficult to do at this speed. I was considering pulling in with the time there to bring that out more, but I decided against it because it's such a short etude, and I didn't want to mess with time and do a bunch of rubato stuff in there. In measure 3, I use side C on my middle C, so B key and second side key here to get it to avoid this kind of thing. I also use bis for all the B flats, so I put my finger here, right in between those, and I use that pretty much on all of the B flats that happen in measures 3 and 4. When we get to measure 5, we have the exact same thing as measure 2, except we are at a forte, so more intensity. Measures 6 and 7, the main thing to look out for is the staccatos. There's all these different staccatos. There's 2 staccatos in the middle of measure 6. There's 1 staccato at the beginning of measure 7, 2 staccatos in the middle of measure 7, and then you have a legato note moving into the last measure. It's easy to mess up on those. You're probably going to want to do this in pretty much one breath. If you take a breath, it should be, and I believe I might have taken that breath, after measure 4. So you may need to slow down a little bit right there. You know, etc., etc., etc. So if you decide to take that breath, just slow down a little bit to set it up, and then pick up the tempo again. One more technical detail in measure 8. In the middle of measure 8, you have an A flat to a D flat. You're going to play that by pushing down the C sharp key for both of them. When you do that on an A flat, it actually, an A flat comes out. And then all you need to do is add your right hand to that, and you have A flat to D flat. If you do that with your G sharp key and then adding your C sharp key, it's going to be very, very difficult at this speed. That is really the main things about this piece. Notice that this is in 6/8, which means that you're going to want a bouncy like that. It's basically in 2 phrases. Measures 1, 2, 3, and 4 is phrase number 1, ends in a half cadence for those of you who are music theory nerds. And phrase number 2 ends in a full cadence, and it starts in measure 5 all the way through the end.